Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door is almost 20 years old at this point, but I'd say it's still one of Mario's biggest adventures to date. Throughout the story, he recruits 7 different partners to help him fight through several new locations in order to defeat the Shadow Queen once and for all. Needless to say, Mario is a very, very brave individual. But what if he weren't so brave? What if Mario was secretly a giant Weenie Hut Jr. and needed his partners to do all of the heavy lifting? In this video, I'm going to be attempting to beat all of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door while only using partners in battle. Obviously, Mario is pretty required to play through the overworld sections of the game, so we're just going to be focused on the battles for this challenge. There are a handful of versions of this challenge out there on YouTube, but I decided to make my own rule set for this one since there's really no cut and dry way to exclude Mario from the equation. It would be really cool if there was a mod for this challenge that actually removed Mario from battle and made him a non-factor, but this game really isn't understood that well from a modding perspective still, so we'll have to stick to the good old arbitrary rules format. Since Mario has to be present for every encounter in the game, here are the rules that I set for this challenge. In battle, Mario has to be swapped to the back slot whenever possible. This way the partner is the one front and center while Mario cowers and hides behind them. Mario can only select Appeal or Defend. Obviously, Appeal does nothing for me since I can't use star power, so I just chose Defend pretty much every single time. There's definitely an argument to be made about this counting as using Mario slightly, but I decided to stick with the theme of Mario being afraid and cowering behind the partner because I thought it was funny. I can't upgrade Mario's HP at any point or use any HP plus badges for Mario. This rule makes it much more of a game of protecting Mario rather than him just being non-existent, which again I think adds to the story that I made up for the challenge. I am allowed to super guard because otherwise this would be impossible. Mario has the courage to guard against enemy attacks when he has a big strong partner in front of him, but still isn't brave enough to attack the enemies directly. I banned the quick change badge because I think it makes things much easier by basically giving the partner an extra turn. I also banned using any power rush badges from the Pianta Parlor. I can use the naturally obtained Mega Rush and Power Rush badges, but can't farm any extra so that danger partner strategies can't break the late game. And also, finally, partners must swap themselves out, and Mario is only allowed to swap a partner if the partner goes down and he's the only one standing. The only other thing that I should mention that's only kind of a rule is if I accidentally first strike an enemy as Mario, I have to run away from the encounter. I'm only adding this because there were a couple moments that I first struck enemies by accident, but I just ran away every time so Mario didn't actually accomplish anything. I know that's kind of a lot of rules, but with how arbitrary some parts of this challenge ended up being, I think it's important to clear up these nuances right from the get-go. Anyways, we literally have a full-length JRPG game to cover, so let's get started. The tutorial fight against Lord Crump is the only required fight in the game where Mario is completely alone. This fight barely even counts anyways since it's not challenging, but I stayed true to the rules and super guarded him to death. After that, Goombella joins our cause and becomes a beacon of hope for Mario in this dark and scary world. From this point onward, Mario will rely entirely on Goombella, but still take credit for every one of her accomplishments. Typical male behavior. Once I'm set free into Rogueport, I did what I usually do and grabbed all the available star pieces and bought some items from the shop. Most notably, I bought a handful of fire flowers because it would save me the tedious task of killing enemies one by one with Goombella. The next required battle is the one against the Goomba trio in the sewers, which is obviously pretty easy since it's just 3 Goombas. To save a fire flower, I slapped the 2 non-spiky ones and super guarded the spiky one to death. From this point onward, I decided to employ an advanced strategy in order to help Goombella win battles. Pacifism. You can't lose a battle that you never even started. Early game star points are really slow and don't even matter that much, so I just walked past every single enemy and progressed with the story. Along the way, I made sure to keep grabbing every collectible I could remember, and eventually I made it to the big blooper. I burned him with the fire flower, head bonked him a few times, and then fire flowered him again for the kill after he respawned the tentacles. So far, Goombella is proving that she might just be the hero of legend destined to collect the 7 crystal stars. Heading into Petal Meadows, pacifism was still helping me win fights, so I proceeded through the game as normal. I beat the Bald Clefs and Bristles with POW blocks, and then I beat both required battles of 4 Fuzzies with Fire Flowers. Gold Fuzzy has never been a top tier threat, and that's still the case when it's just Goombella. Funnily enough, when Mario is stuck defending, the Fuzzy Horde can't actually damage him since they hit for 5 bursts of 1 damage. Gold Fuzzy goes down easily, and then I skipped all the enemies between here and Red Bones. Koops joins during this segment, who is pretty useful at this point in the game, game, but overall not quite as strong as Goombella in my opinion at least. Onto the Red Bones fight, I used a POW block to deal 2 damage to everything, killing all the Dull Bones, and then all Red Bones did was spawn another Dull Bones. A Fire Flower finished them off, and I continued through Hooktail's castle. I continued to avoid encounters, which really is going to become a theme during this challenge, but there were a few that got in my way that I did fight my way through. Koops is able to get a lot of the work done with Power Shell and some Super Guards, so none of those encounters were anything worth talking about. Hooktail was coming up next, but I decided to do something slightly unconventional before taking her on. Challenge playthroughs of Thousand Year Door are much more about planning than they are about execution. Super Guards are the most important part of execution, but that's probably only about 30% of what goes into a successful fight. Going into this, I already figured that the Cricket Badge wouldn't work without Mario attacking, so Hooktail was going to have her full attack and her 1 defense, which means that Goombella can't damage her in her current state, and Koops can only hit her for 1 damage at a time. So that means that my options were either to spend 30 turns attacking with Koops for both phases while barely missing any Super Guards and healing as necessary, or bring 10 Fire Flowers in and still barely miss any Super Guards. I decided to opt for option C. After getting my 3rd Shine Sprite in Hooktail Castle, I immediately turned back around and went all the way back to Rogueport. I put my Shine Sprites into ranking up Goombella, which increases her attack by 1 and unlocks Multi-Bonk. Multi-Bonk is just Power Bounce but for Goombella, which makes her an insanely strong character to fight bosses with. While I was back in Rogueport, I also checked out the badge shop. I didn't get anything too important right now, but it's worth pointing out that money is hardly going to be an issue for this whole challenge since I can sell any badges that give Mario attack increases or new moves since they do absolutely nothing for me. I walked all the way back into Hooktail's castle and caught back up with where I was before. I avoided the last few encounters before Hooktail and then challenged the big dragon herself. I immediately opened with a multi-bonk, which I gotta say I'm pretty good at the timing for. I hit Hooktail with 11 bounces in a row, already taking the first phase below half. Mario defends, and then I super guarded her breath attack. Another multi-bonk already takes out the first phase, and then after the short cutscene the turn resets and Goombella gets to go again. Unfortunately, I only got 7 bonks this time, so I super guarded the stomp attack a couple times while I finished Hooktail off with regular head bonk attacks. With better execution, I could have finished Hooktail in 3 turns using only Goombella, but even though it took me 5, I still hit every super guard and did it completely damageless. The Peach and Bowser intermission parts of this game have absolutely nothing to do with this challenge, so this is the only time you'll see them in this video, and it's literally just for the purpose of me telling you that you won't see them. Anyways, moving on. The pacifism meta continues and probably will continue for the rest of the game, so I should probably just stop talking about it at this point. But anyways, next up for me to tackle are the Shadow Sirens. These guys can honestly be a bit of a threat because their damage output is pretty high for this early on, but Super Rank Goombella is such a unit that it hardly matters. 20 health is more than enough to soak up whatever these guys could hit me with, and since I picked up a Power Plus P from Dazzle, Goombella now does 6 damage with her regular attack, which is so much for this point in the game. I almost killed Marilyn on turn 1 with a multi-bonk, but didn't quite do enough damage, so I finished her next turn with a regular head bonk. Beldum shrunk Goombella, which brings her attack back down to 1 per hit, but I'm still able to squeeze enough hits out of a multi-bonk with baby Goombella to kill Vivian on the next turn, and then Beldum on the turn after that. Overall, a pretty easy encounter. After that, I unlocked Flurrie, who I've said before is one of my least favorite partners in battle, and that is still true for this challenge. I barely used her at any point, but it's always good to have more allies in reserve, I guess. Beyond that, I entered the Great Tree where you get jumped by 2 X-Nauts. Goombella can one-shot them and every other regular enemy in this chapter besides the spiked ones, so none of them are really a concern for me. The Super Brutes are normally a fantastic upgrade for Mario that makes battles way easier, but in this playthrough they're literally only a tool in the overworld, so let's just skip the rest of the Great Tree and take on Magnus von Grapple. In all honesty, his stats are about the same as Hooktail's when she isn't debuffed by the Cricket Badge, so I wasn't too concerned. Multi-bonks can wear his health down pretty fast, and his attacks don't do very much damage. His damage output goes up a hell of a lot when he spawns the Rocket Fists, but I was counting damage as I went and knew I could finish him off with a couple more head bonks. I got kind of low on health, I'll admit, but it wasn't as close as it looks because of planning and shit. Before heading to Glitzville, I made sure to rank up Koops and not Flurrie so that I could save the shine sprites for the upcoming Yoshi, and I grabbed a few more miscellaneous things that were available to me now. Once I'm in Glitzville itself, there's a few more items I can get that are super useful for this challenge. The first of those is a second Power Plus P badge, which I probably don't need to explain why that's useful, and the second thing is a Last Stand badge. This badge lets Mario take half damage when he's in danger, which combined with him always having +1 defense from spamming defend makes his survivability so much better. Now, let's head into the gauntlet of the Glitz Pit. This is obviously the most combat heavy section of the game, but I know all of these encounters super well, so I made sure to strategize before heading into each fight. To add an extra challenge to this chapter, I decided to ban items for the Glitz Pit altogether to make it a little more interesting than just buying 20 earthquakes from the shop and shaking every enemy to death. I was just going to kill all 5 Goombas in the first battle with a power shell, but Grubba wanted me to appeal to the crowd, and I thought it would be fitting to do that with Koops and burn a turn. I was confident that I would just hit all the super guards, but I didn't, and the Goombas knocked Koops down. From there, I just had to spam defend with Mario over and over, waiting for them to either kill Koops or choose to attack Mario so I could super guard them. Eventually, Mario did super guard the last Goomba for the kill. Not a pretty start to the Glitz Pit, but oh well, I guess. Next are the KP Koopas, which can be killed with 1 head bonk from Goombella each since I have one of the Power Plus Ps equipped. The Grubba condition had me taking damage from my opponent 3 times, which worked out perfectly since they get 3 attacks in the time it takes Goombella to kill all of them anyways. For the Poke triplets, Grubba told me to not use my hammer, which, okay. So I just used Koops to kill all of them in 1 power shell. For the Dolbones, I got finish the battle in 5 turns or less, so I just decided to finish it in 1 turn. Simple as that. Spike Storm is one of the more annoying fights to deal with here since it's not easy to damage the Spinies with my current loadout. I started with Goombella to kill the Lakitu, and then I swapped over to Koops, who's able to hit the Spinies for 1 damage. With a little bit of super guarding, I chipped their health away to nothing. For the handed overs, I got the condition to not use items, which is fine because I already set that rule for myself, and I can wipe the whole screen with 2 power shells. It doesn't matter that some of them are able to steal from me on the first turn because they literally do not get to live a second turn. For the Mind Bogglers, Grubba told me not to jump, which was as much of a problem as you'd think. On the next fight, Grubba's condition was to not use special moves, which was about as hard as the last condition. 2 power shells with Koops is all it took to kill these Clefts. On the Bomb-Omb squad, I got the condition to finish the battle in 5 turns or less, and I decided to go for the baller strategy. From here, I unlocked Yoshi and I gave him the most fitting name that I could think of for this challenge. Then I walked all the way back to Merlin and Rogueport to rank him up for the rest of the Glitz Pit. Unlike the last full game challenge I did, it doesn't break the rules to kill the Iron Clefs with Yoshi, so 2 gulps is enough to kill them without any drama as to whether or not the challenge has failed. The red Spike Tops were easy to kill with a gulp, and then I used a power shell into Super Guards to take out the Dark Bristles. The Shady Koopa team is definitely one of the bigger threats out of this whole chapter. If I knock them on their backs, they can use an attack that does 6 damage to each character if I don't super guard it, which will tear through Mario pretty quickly. I decided to use Goombella and kill each of them one at a time with a multi-bonk so that they never had a turn while on their backs. After that, the Armored Harriers come back in for a rematch, which is technically an optional fight, but I had enough FP to gulp them twice after using a honey syrup, so I was able to beat them again. Next on the chopping block is the Fuzzy team, which can be almost one-shot with a power shell since I can do 5 damage with ranked up Koops and 2 Power Plus Ps. I did the last damage to the Flower Fuzzy with a Super Guard, which made for a super clean kill. The Magic Koopa Masters gave me the condition to finish the battle in 5 turns or less, which I actually cut close on for once. I brought Yoshi, who is capable of one-shotting each of them with his normal attack, and began to pick them off one by one. The green Magic Koopa turned the white one invisible, so I took out the green one on the next turn. The white Magic Koopa used his illusion move while still invisible, which is where the time limit for this battle actually becomes an issue. I decided to use Mini Egg to try and reveal the real one, but Yoshi choked and threw 2 eggs at 1 illusion. Now on turn 5, the only hope I had left was to pick 1 out of the 3 illusions and hope it was the right one. Luckily, I hit the 1 in 3 chance and Yoshi killed his ass dead. Bowser stormed in after that, but I just spammed him with multi-bonks over and over while I hit him back with easy super guard. guards. He was honestly easier than the Magic Koopa battle right before him, which I think is kind of funny, but I'm sure Bowser probably doesn't see it that way. On Hamma, Bama, and Flare, Grubba gave me the condition to take damage at least 5 times, which is definitely one of the more evil fight conditions he can give you overall. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to get hit a lot during this fight because of how many attacks these guys use. A couple power shells is able to take them out, so I can kill them pretty easily after they've done their damage. Next up was our good homie Crawdaddy. Nobody calls him that except himself, it's kinda weird, where my best damage output actually came from using Mini Egg. I was able to deal 9 damage per attack, which chewed through his health pretty quickly. Oh, and the Grubba condition was to win before taking 20 HP of damage, which he mathematically can't do to me in the 3 turns he's alive, so we're in the clear. The red chomps were easy enough to deal with. All I had to do was gulp and then super guard him to deal the last, and then I had to use a second gulp to finish him off. The Dark Koopa Troll was one that I thought would be intimidating, but then I remembered I can hit him with 7 damage gulps over and over while super guarding his horrible attempts at damaging me, and he went down really painlessly actually. Finally, I get to Rock Hawk, where Grubba will always give the use a special move condition. Luckily, as I learned from the comments on the last full game challenge I did, it actually doesn't matter whether or not you fulfill this condition, the story will progress exactly the same after you win the fight either way. So I just hit him with 3 multi-bonks while he hit me back with underwhelming attacks, and he died. He's dead. No more Rock Hawk. Whenever I say Rock Hawk's name, it sounds like I'm saying something else, so I'm gonna stop now. The last obstacle between Mario and the 3rd Crystal Star is Mario's crippling cowardice, but the last obstacle between Goombella and the 3rd Crystal Star is Macho Grubba. This guy has always been an absolute unit of a boss for this early in the game, like I mentioned in my last challenge, and while he's not quite as hard this time, he still doesn't go down without a fight. I decided to go with the tried and true multi-bonk spam since I should have more than enough FP to kill him. He always burns his first turn by giving himself the status that gives him 2 turns later, so I'm already able to get him down to almost half health before he does anything to me. Unfortunately, he buffs his attack and then slaps Mario specifically for 6 damage since I whiffed the super guard, which is a big setback. Another multi-bonk takes him down to 21 health, but then he reaches his final form where he gains a new, even stronger attack. He buffs, and then I whiffed the super guard again, bringing Mario down to just 1 health. I decided that at this point I just had to commit and not mess up the super guard again, so another multi-bonk brought Grubba down to just 9 health. But, unfortunately, it was not meant to be on this attempt, and Grubba takes Mario down. Womp womp. I had Close Call equipped here for Mario, but neither that or my super guarding ability came in clutch. On to attempt number 2, I went for exactly the same strategy and just planned on not sucking massive balls at the game this time. The first 2 turns went exactly the same, except this time I actually managed to super guard Grubba, putting me way ahead of last attempt where he took 60% of Mario's health in 1 move. I keep up the multi-bonk grind and land another super guard on Grubba, making him totally useless up to this point. He then buffs his defense, so I'm only able to bring him down to 14 with the next attack. After that, he gives himself dodgy status, and then I super guard him yet again, and I decided to flip the coin and go for 1 final multi-bonk, and of course I miss, so I resigned to using just 2 regular head bonks to finish him off. He goes for 1 more Hail Mary attack, but gets foiled by my ability to press the silly little red button on the controller, and boom. Not only did I stop being the game, but I actually did the fight completely damageless. Chapter 3 has by far the most required battles, so it always ends up being really long to talk about in my challenges. I tried my best to zoom through my strategies for each battle, but I do think that it's fun and worthwhile to be thorough enough to describe how I approach each battle. With that being said, the next few sections will be much shorter, so let's keep this thing moving. In Chapter 4 of Paper Mario and the 1000 Years of Pacifism, I only did 3 total battles, and all 3 of them were bosses. It took some clever sneaking around, but I avoided every Hyper Goomba, Daisy, and Cleft on the Twilight Trail. Next, I decided to see how difficult the Atomic Boo boss would be. He's optional, but he's a fun one to try fighting since he's pretty strong. The multi-bonk meta has been holding up amazingly so far, so I slapped him with a few more of those, and I managed to get a Shine Sprite Bingo heal. This made things less close after he did quite a bit of damage with his charge-up attack, but overall pretty easy. Now we're onto the Duplis fight, which was designed to feel slightly underwhelming since it's a fake-out chapter boss. He tried to do some attacks or whatever, but Goombella is the hero of the prophecy and Duplis stood no chance against her forehead. Now, this part of the run is a bit interesting since this is the point in the game where Duplis truly becomes Mario and then he steals all of my partners. With no partners, Mario is left all alone and he has absolutely no marketable skills whatsoever. On the way back to Twilight Town, I avoided as many enemies as I could, not out of pacifism this time, but out of fear. Eventually, I reached the light at the end of the tunnel, Vivian herself. With a partner again, I can technically fight enemies, but Vivian isn't very strong unranked against multiple enemies, so I continued to ignore them. I did the rest of the exploring for this chapter and eventually found myself face to face with Dupless and all of my other partners. Dupless doesn't have the confidence issues that Mario does, so he's willing to fight alongside them in order to take me down. This fight actually starts with Mario alone for the first 2 turns until Vivian resolves to join you, so for the first couple turns, I decided that Mario wasn't allowed to super guard because he had no partner to give him confidence. All this really did was make it so Vivian had to waste another turn when she finally showed up so she could heal him, but I thought it was really funny and went with the bull story, so I committed to it. I didn't really need the extra handicap though, because this fight is already a pretty hard one under these conditions. Since Vivian shows up mid-fight, your equipped badges don't actually apply to her for whatever reason, so this means that my 2 Power Plus Ps are absolutely useless for this fight, and that's going to make this process a lot longer. Vivian can do 3 damage per attack plus 1 extra for the fire tick each turn. This makes the battle pretty heavily reliant on super guards and or healing items, as you have to survive a minimum of 12 turns against Dupless and Goombella. If you don't super guard Goombella, she can apparently do 6 damage with multi-bonk, which is kind of disgusting here. I managed to miss enough super guards that Vivian went down and popped my life shroom, and after that, things kept not quite going my way. Vivian went down a second time, and with no other partners in reserve, all Mario could do is cower and wait for his fate to be sealed. So, on to attempt 2, there wasn't much I could change in terms of my strategy, so I just had to throw myself at it again and hit more super guards this time. I really wanted to finish this without using my life shroom, but I was okay with giving it up for the cause if that helped me get through the battle easier. Unfortunately though, I got my ass absolutely handed to me at the start of this battle. Dupless hammered Vivian for 4, and then Goombella did 8 damage with multi-bonk this time. Needless to say, this didn't end up being the god attempt either. I checked my badge menu and apparently I had 3 extra badge power that I totally forgot about, so I put on Close Call and Pretty Lucky to help Mario avoid some extra damage for free and went back in a 3rd time. I managed to do a lot better with super guards this time, and I made sure to use the Earthquake item I had, which gave me 2 extra damage on that turn. Game changing, I know. Towards the end of the fight, Vivian got pretty low, but Dupless was also low, so I topped off her health with a mushroom and then finished the job, no life shroom needed. It truly is crazy what a difference being good at the game can make. Chapter 5 has 4 required battles in it, so you can probably guess about how many fights I ended up doing. The 2 battles with 3 embers are easy to deal with using a couple power shells, and then the next fight after that was Cortez himself. The multi-bonk strategy still ain't broke, so I went in with Goombella. Cortez can do an okay amount of damage, but with an HP plus P equipped, Goombella's 25 health is more than enough to sponge it all up. I managed to beat the first phase with 2 10 damage multi-bonks, but on the second phase I got capped at 9, so I just finished it with 2 regular head bonks to save FP for the final phase. Also, random side note, I didn't realize that Cortez had a standard single target attack during the second phase. I feel like I've only ever seen him use the charge up attack, but hey, you learn something new about Thousand Year Door every time you play it. Spoilers for the rest of this video, phase 3 is the only time that I used Flurrie for this entire playthrough. I swapped over to her with Goombella's turn, tanked some attacks from Cortez's weapons, and then used Gale Force. I'm sure most of the Thousand Year Door scholars watching this already knew this, but his weapons are absurdly weak to Gale Force. Normally if you defeat the weapons, they'll get back up after a couple turns, but if you blow them away with Flurrie, they're out for the rest of the fight. This makes the last phase super easy since Cortez only gets to attack for 4 damage once per turn, and he's pretty easy to super guard. After spamming some more multi-bonks, he heals himself, then I multi-bonk him again, and he goes down. The final obstacle of Chapter 5 is the Lord Crump fight, and this one is a little bit harder than Cortez in my opinion. On the first turn of the battle, the X-Naut pile spawned holding a stopwatch, which I actually didn't know could happen, so I had to take them out before they hit me with the most overpowered status in the game. After doing that, I took half of Crump's health with a multi-bonk. The ceiling X-Nauts can do a bit of damage, but their spam attack doesn't do anything to Mario when he's defending. Another multi-bonk brings Crump down to 1 health, which I took out with a super guard. Phase 2 is the part where the damage can really start to rack up, since his X-Naut ball attack does 5 to each character every turn. If I can kill him fast enough, then it won't be an issue, and luckily I'm capable of doing exactly that. Crump goes down to half in one multi-bonk again, and then Last Stand saves Mario from dying to the X-Naut ball. Also, I just wanted to say, I super guarded the ball attack with Goombella, but apparently on this attack you have to press the button for each character to fully super guard against it. Other group attack in the games only make you press it once, but I forgot that you have to press it twice here. This phase ends exactly the same as the first. I get Crump down to 1 health and then finish him with a super guard. Mario did get down to 1 health, but last I checked, 1 is in fact more than 0, so we're all good. This is going to be a very short segment because the only enemy that I fought for the entire chapter was the chapter boss, the Smorg. This fight could be pretty tedious or even difficult if not for the fact that you can buy Thunder Rages on the train for pretty cheap. On turn 1, I immediately opened with a Thunder Rage from Goombella, which kills all of the tentacles and leaves the Smorg open to be attacked. Unfortunately, I only get 1 move with Goombella while he's exposed since Mario is too busy being a little bitch in the corner. The tentacles respawn and unleash a round of attacks on me, and then I run the same play back for Goombella's next turn. The Smorg is put down to 16 health, which has it in range to spawn the giant claw instead. If I missed the super guard right here, that would have been GG, but I hit it, killed the claw, and finished the Smorg off with 1 more multi-bounce. I gotta say, by this point in the game, my pacifism skills were absolutely on point. I only got into 1 encounter in Far Outpost on each trip to and from there, and I just ran away from it anyways because I couldn't be bothered. My proudest pacifism moment though is right here on the moon while trying to break the rock to get to the X-Naut fortress. I tucked behind the rock to dodge the Yux lasers, peeked out to throw Bobbery, ran back to safety, and then hopped into the pipe before they could first strike me. I swear, I try this every time I play Thousand Year Door, and I think this is the first time I've ever successfully done it without getting first struck by the Yux. Now honestly, elite X-Nauts are pretty strong enemies, but they don't really have the longevity to be an actual threat. Goombella can kill each of these 2 with a multi-bonk, and all the other encounters I got in with X-Nauts were pretty easy too. Yoshi can one-shot X-Naut PhDs, and the horde of regular guys in this fight were easy to kill with a Thunder Rage. The real star of the show in this chapter is Magnus von Grapple 2.0. This guy doesn't f around. I kept my badge loadout pretty much the same as I've been running for a while. I made sure to have a pretty lucky on as well as close call so that Mario has a higher chance of dodging attacks, and oh boy is he gonna need it. I stuck with Goombella multi-bonk spam, but it was only able to do 9 damage on this guy before my jumps got capped, which is gonna make this fight take quite a while. The drill attack isn't too hard to super guard, but I missed it on the first turn, which already puts Mario down into danger territory. After another multi-bonk, Magnus spawns the upgraded Rocket Fist, which do 9 damage per attack, an absolutely disgusting figure. I decided to kill the Rocket Fist with Goombella's next 2 turns, which sucks because she took a fair bit of damage during this time without making any progress on the actual boss. I got him down to 40 with another multi-bonk, and then the fog rolled in, which is always awesome. I love putting my attacks up to a coin flip. I decided to heal Mario so that I didn't waste a turn and some FP trying a multi-bonk. Once again, Magnus spawned his Rocket Fist, so I had to deal with those. They aren't so hard to super guard, but even missing one of them sets you back so much. Another multi-bonk gets him to 28 health, where he enters his final phase and unleashes his special trick.
He's pulling his cock out!
Like I mentioned in the last full challenge video, this attack is the strongest single target move in the whole game. It hits for 10 bursts of 3 damage, which are insanely hard to super guard more than 1 or 2 of. Even if you go for regular guards and hit all of them, you'd still take 20 damage. So this of course kills Goombella, popping a life shroom to keep her in the fight. I used a whack-a-bump to heal her back up, which may have been the wrong choice due to how close Magnus is to death. He spawned the fists again, and I decided to take them out yet again. I got him down to just 10 health, which is in kill range if I get lucky with my multi-bonk cap, but then...
He's pulling his cock out!
Goombella is already back down to 14 health after dealing with the fists, so she got absolutely ass blasted into oblivion by the crowd cannon attack. This forces Mario to the front, where I used the one exception to his rule and swapped Goombella out for no Mario. A ground pound takes Magnus down to just 4 health left, but apparently he can use his stupid bullshit penis cannon attack multiple times in a row, so Mario gets mowed down and I'm back to square one. I decided to change my badge approach just a little bit. With better luck, I could have won the last attempt, but the only thing better than luck is an actual plan. I put on a defend plus and damage dodge for Mario, which will make him much stronger at surviving the crowd cannon attack if it comes down to that again. This time I played much more aggressively with Goombella. Instead of killing the Rocket Fists, I just completely completely ignored them and tried my best to super guard them. I would need more FP at some point anyways, so healing with a whack-a-bump after a bit of damage wasn't the end of the world. I lucked out and his first use of the crowd cannon actually happened in the fog, which cut the damage he would have done by a lot. Unfortunately though, this guy just spams his best move over and over like a child playing a fighting game, and he used the crowd cannon a second time in a row. This time it kills Goombella, popping the life shroom. Not only is it crazy that he can do this 2 times in a row, but it's insane that he can do this on the same turn that his fists attack. That's almost 50 potential damage coming out from this fight in 1 turn. I decided to stay the course with Goombella, but honestly the aggressive strategy didn't pay off quite as much as I was hoping. She went down for the final time in this fight while Magnus still had 25 health left. I used Mario to bring in Bobbery, and then I hit everyone with a Bombast or Bombast, something like that, to clear out the fists and do good damage to Magnus. He used the crowd cannon a goddamn 3rd time, this time with Mario still in the front slot from the previous swap. My badge setup and some good guards let Mario live with exactly 1 health, and then I healed him back up with a whack-a-bump so I could also restore my FP. This filthy spammer used the crowd cannon again, cutting Bobbery's health in half. I used a random HP drain item I had from the fortress to steal some health back, and then Magnus unleashed his fists yet again. I used a Bombast a 2nd time to kill the fists again, and this brought Magnus down to 4. He used the crowd cannon again, and with 2 super guards and 1 regular guard, I managed to hang on with 1 health, which is in fact the minimum amount Bobbery needs to finish this fight. 1 more bomb attack seals Lord Crump's fate. Magnus 2.0 is honestly such a difficult boss. He's not so bad if you're under normal conditions and can kill him pretty quickly with a power lift or some other strategy, but when your damage output and turns are so limited, he gets just enough time to be a major pain in the ass. Things can only get better from here though, right? Before heading into the Palace of Shadow, I decided to do some preparation and late game cleanup. I tracked down the last few shine sprites I was missing so I could get every partner ultra ranked. If I'm doing a partner only challenge, I might as well have all of them at their full potential strength. I got various badges that I didn't have already, and I made sure to do Zest's Trouble so I could cook 2 ingredient items. In terms of inventory, I brought 1 Jelly Ultra, 2 Maple Ultras, 2 Maple Supers, and 5 Thunder Rages. With all the prep done, it's time to head into the actual dungeon. The final chapter of the game is where I finally decided to cash in on all of my pacifism. Since I was so disgustingly underleveled, all the enemies in the Palace of Shadow would give me an insane amount of star points. This battle of 4 Swoopulas was easy to kill with a single Bombast, and I got 48 star points from them. This saves so much time over fighting enemies earlier in the game, and honestly I really didn't need any more levels until now. I fought my way through some Bombshell Bill Blasters, which is actually the reason that I added the rule where I could run if I accidentally did a first strike with Mario. I was trying to jump over these guys, but I f***ed it and first struck him instead. No harm done, I just ran away and moved on with my life. I got to the Dark Bones fight, which has never actually been all that hard in my opinion. I killed all the Dry Bones on the first turn with a Bombast, and then Dark Bones decided to spawn another Dry Bones. The Fog ate one of Bobbery's turns, but I have so much FP that I can just use another Bombast and finish the fight. From there, I did a few more battles to cash out on the star points bank I've been investing in for the whole run, and eventually I made it to Gloomtail. Gloomtail is another late game boss that can be surprisingly strong if you give him some time to stretch his legs. For the first time in this playthrough, I decided to try out the Charge P badge in combination with Goombella's multi-bonk. I kinda slept on it because I subconsciously remembered it being bad in the no action command challenge, but in this challenge it's pretty damn good in a few ways. To start off this battle, I charged once and then used a multi-bonk so I could get more damage for less FP. Gloomtail's breath attack already brings Mario to critical health ranges unfortunately, but I decided to just cross my fingers and hope that I'd either hit the super guards or Gloomtail would miss. That strategy always works, except for when it doesn't. Since my main issue with that last attempt was execution rather than planning, I went right back in without changing my loadout. This time though, I decided to just spam the shit out of the charge move. I managed to super guard the breath attack, and then Gloomtail kept targeting only Goombella, which is much less of an issue than Mario. He finally did land a breath attack, but I'm only a charge or 2 away from killing him in a single multi-bonk, so I stuck to the plan. I super guarded 2 more breath attacks and then finally unleashed my multi-bonk. I honestly probably could have killed him with 1 less charge, but hey, that was still pretty clean overall. The next threat in my way is the Shadow Sirens battle, and honestly I was pretty worried about this one because these guys are strong as f***. I came up with a fairly risky strategy, but if I pulled it off, it would make for a nice clean kill. I entered the fight with good old no Mario, charge P, and a dream. My goal was simply to survive long enough to charge and kill them with a single stampede attack. After charging just 3 times, I had enough gas in the tank to kill all of them in one blow, nice, clean, and beautiful. I zoomed through the rest of the Palace of Shadow and tried to get just enough star points so that I would level up after Grotus and be fully healed for Bowser. After killing every enemy though, I ended up exactly rolling over to 0 star points and leveling up, so oops, guess I'll just have to fight Grotus and Bowser back to back raw. Speaking of Grotus, he's probably the boss that I'm most worried for in this challenge, maybe even more than the Shadow Queen herself. The reason for this is because of the way he generates his shield. He starts the fight with 4 Grotus X's, and when he has 4 of them present, he has a shield that makes him completely invincible. If he has less than 4 at the end of a turn, he'll generate up to 2 more of them, meaning that he can have a full shield again in just 2 turns. This is a huge problem since I'm so limited on how many turns I have. That specific mechanic is the reason I brought so many Thunder Rages. I'd be able to use a Thunder Rage, kill all the Grotus X's, attack him once, and then he'd be back at full shield again, rinse and repeat. For the first turn, I opened with a Thunder Rage, of course, which kills all of his Grotus X's. Unfortunately, his attacks are pretty hard to super guard, so Mario already takes a big juicy shot to the dome. One multi-bonk only deals 9 damage to Grotus, which is definitely not enough. And then, he just kills me on turn 2. Awesome. So I immediately went back to the drawing board and adjusted my badge setup. Instead of just having 1 Defend Plus, I used 2 of them, and then I realized that I'm an idiot and could have been using the P down D up badge the entire time as a cheap Defend Plus. This in combination with Mario's last stand should make him much more durable for the next attempt. This time around, I decided it would be much more lucrative to go with the charge spam strategy rather than using Thunder Rages and chipping away over and over. This way, I didn't have to worry about running out of Thunder Rages or anything stupid like that. The Grotus X's actually do get to attack, and it deals 5 damage to Goombella since her defense is down 1 because of the P up D down P, but it actually does 0 damage to Mario when he's defending, so that makes this charge strategy a lot more sustainable than you might think. I got some good super guards in on Grotus's attacks, and the ones that did make it through to Mario didn't do as much damage as they did before. When Mario got low, I topped him off with one of the maple supers that I brought and kept charging. I was pretty much ready to kill Grotus, but then he gave himself the status that reflects direct attacks. In order to slow down the damage being done to Goombella, I stalled by using some Thunder Rages to kill the Grotus X's a couple times while waiting for the reflect status to go away. Once the status was gone, I unleashed Goombella's full power attack and obliterated him in one move. And as you all know, there's no time to reflect on how that fight went because Bowser jumps you immediately after. Bowser and Cammy do have a lot of health combined, but they don't have that god-awful shield mechanic, so they're not as big of a threat as Grotus. Still though, I had to burn a couple turns in order to heal Goombella and Mario, which is pretty annoying. Bowser almost kills me right away with a Fire Breath attack, but fortunately all of Bowser's attacks are pretty easy to super guard, so I blocked it. I charged up with Goombella in order to kill Cammy first since her super guards are trickier and she can heal and give Bowser status. Another fun quirk of this fight is that super guarding Bowser will make Cammy waste entire turns just to heal 1 or 2 damage sometimes. And for some reason Bowser just kept using his bite attack over and over and over. Apparently he really wanted a taste of Goombella. I miscounted my charges and Cammy survived with 1 health, so 1 more turn is all it takes to finish her off. Also, another side note, but Bowser's hitbox for the bite attack is really funny when he has the huge status. Like, bro, what are you trying to bite? On his own, Bowser is pretty mild, so I kept super guarding most of his attacks while Goombella did some charging, multi-bonking, and just regular bonking to take him out. Can I just say, thank God I beat Bowser first try, because if I didn't, I would have had to fight Grotus all over again, and that would have been so painful. Anyways, we're now on to the final boss of Paper Mario. Actually, scratch that. The final boss of Paper Goombella, the Thousand-Year Door. But first, I decided to make a quick run all the way back to Rogueport since I pretty much burned through my entire item stash during those last few boss fights. I debated for the whole walk back on how I'd build my inventory for the Shadow Queen, and instead of something reasonable, I decided to bring 2 Jelly Ultras and 8 Life Shrooms. The Jelly Ultras are a pretty obvious choice. They were mainly for FP actually, but since my inventory was so limited, it felt worthwhile to combine it with HP healing. As I've learned throughout this challenge, the main limitation hasn't been the actual strength of my partner, but instead the amount of turns I get compared to the enemies. Having 1 turn instead of the normal 2 is such a disadvantage, especially against bosses like Grotus, so I decided to try this to slightly get around that. Life Shrooms activating when you die doesn't take up any turns, so it's essentially a free healing turn every time it happens. This is going to make a difference pretty quickly because stopping to take healing turns during Shadow Queen would slow my progress down so much and maybe even make it impossible without perfect super guards. So, with my inventory prepared, I headed into the first phase of the final battle against Shadow Peach herself. Shadow Peach was honestly the part of the fight I was more concerned about, if anything. I had discovered by this point that charge plus multi-bonk was pretty powerful, but that wouldn't work on this phase since her crown apparently counts as a spike hat just like a spiky Goomba. Because of this, I went into the first phase with Yoshi already in peril so I could take advantage of Mega Rush P and Power Rush P. Just one Stampede is almost enough to bring her down low enough to switch to the invincibility part of the first phase. No Mario survives her attack with a Lucky, so I mini-egged her to finish off the Shadow Peach portion of our program. In order to avoid wasting life shrooms, I swapped out Yoshi for Bobbery in order to soak up some hits. Now this part is surprisingly annoying for this challenge since you're required to hit her a few times with useless attacks in order to progress to phase 2. She still keeps spamming you with full strength attacks of her own this whole time, so she actually ended up burning a couple of my life shrooms right here. I still had 6 of them left going into phase 2 and I was just gonna have to hope that that would be enough. Right at the start of phase 2, I switched out Bobbery for Goombella. She's been the MVP for this entire playthrough, and that's going to continue right to the very end, damn it. Instead of going straight for a charge up, I actually decided to use unboosted multi-bonks at first instead. The reason for this is that there's a scripted Shine Sprite bingo that always happens on this fight, so I figured I'd get free damage because my HP and FP would be healed back up immediately anyways. She did manage to pop one of my life shrooms on Mario during this time, but I'd say it was worth it overall. After getting my free heal, I started the charge grind. Mario went down again from her big charge up move, but the life shrooms just let me keep ignoring Mario back there while Goombella does her thing. I had to be careful to not let Goombella die since she would lose her charges after the life shroom saved her, so I used one of my Jelly Ultras to top her back up. This absolutely juicy series of super guards that I hit helped me stay alive for a little bit longer, but Goombella quickly got knocked back down to critical range. I decided to use my charged up multi-bonk prematurely because if Goombella died and got life shroomed, it would have all been for nothing. This brought the Shadow Queen down to 47 health, and then she made the biggest blunder in the history of video games. Instead of attacking and picking off either of my severely weakened characters, she charged up for another big attack. Then, Goombella's poison ticked her down to 1 health. Keep in mind, there was no opportunity to change badges between the first and second phase, so my loadout was exactly the same as it was with Yoshi earlier. That means I still had Mega Rush and Power Rush equipped. Goombella's attack was skyrocketed to the moon, and I was able to finish off Shadow Queen in just 1 more multi-bonk. That means with an absolutely insane amount of luck, but also some good strategizing, Goombella beat the Shadow Queen on the very first try. And with that, I have proven that it is in fact possible to beat Thousand Year Door without using Mario at all. In battle anyways. I don't think that it's ever going to be possible to beat the whole game, overworld and all, without him unless people find a way to execute arbitrary code by jizzing on the game disc or something, so for today we'll call this a successful challenge. Just like with the last full game challenge, I decided to not include the Pit of 100 Trials in this video since it's already a long ass game as is, but if you guys are interested in seeing the partners only Pit of 100 Trials, make sure you let me know down below. Honestly, I think that might end up being pretty hard, maybe even harder than the no action command pit, so maybe we'll find out. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. GG, have a good one.